Today on the Videomaker Podcast, we make predictions about video technology in 2020. Plus, we discuss a new DJI driving drone and Nikon's new RAW video firmware update. Also, as a side note, in this episode, you may hear a rumble in the background. Our studio is located right next door to a cemetery, believe it or not. And while they usually mow the lawn in the mornings, today they decided to mow during the podcast. So sorry about that, but fortunately, it doesn't last long. All that and more coming up. Welcome to the Videomaker Podcast. I'm Mike Wilhelm. With me, as always, to my left is Nicole and Chris. And to my right, Chris Monlux.
What's happening? We got this like tri-square thing going on here, so we don't quite know the Brady Bunch person to look at yet.
That's right, but at least when I turn, it's like looking in the right direction on screen.
For you, yeah.
No guest today, so let's get right to the housekeeping. So first off, Chris and I will be in Las Vegas next week for CES.
For a quick trip to good old Vegas to get inundated by lots and lots of new products.
That's right. So that'll be Tuesday and Thursday, and we're out there looking for all the the latest video technology that's coming out this year. So you can stay tuned to videomaker.com on Tuesday and later into the week for all the latest CES news about video tech. And we'll also release, I guess, late Wednesday into Thursday, our announcements for the best products of CES, so keep an eye out there. Secondly, if you've been listening to this podcast and you like what we're doing here, we'd be extremely grateful if you gave us a 5-star review on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe so you get the latest version of the podcast, the latest episode, I guess, delivered right into your device every week.
It looks fishy when it says, like, Chris Monlux says, great podcast. I love it. So you guys got to get out there and do it, because my screen name is not.
Or your mom, I guess, Helen Monlux. Or
Ann Monlux does not listen to podcasts, but if you if you see a review from her, it's probably fake.
At least if it's on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's it for housekeeping. So today we are going to talk about predictions for 2020 in the video technology world, or just video world in general, I guess. So a lot has happened in the last year, and we tend to make predictions internally, and we're often wrong. And today we're going to list a few more predictions, and we'll probably also be wrong. But let's dive into a few of them, eh? So first off, Chris, you have a prediction about 6K video.
Yeah, so I think we've started to see the move to 6K, but I think that in all major cameras, I'm not talking about your cheap lower end, maybe DSLRs or mirrorless or whatever, but the higher end, that we're going to see 6K is the newest feature, especially in the full frame cameras, because I think it's the easier place to go. They've already been in for Sony oversampling 6K, same thing for Nikon, and so I think that's the natural place. The Blackmagic 6K has already been out. I think I don't think anybody's demanding it. I think it's just the camera manufacturers going, we need to give them something new, and all the rest of the technology is difficult to achieve. So, I think resolution is probably the easiest thing to step up, I think.
So when I heard that you were going to make this prediction, I thought, wow, that's kind of bold. I think the text that you wrote in was 6K in all video cameras.
Yeah, I softened it up a little bit in my pitch. Yeah.
So where is the line here? What's your prediction about, where do we go from all video cameras to major video cameras? Now, what is the definition of a major video camera?
Yeah.
I think full frame. I think all full frame. I could say that for certain, I think.
For certain.
Because there's technological reasons for that, right?
Yeah, it's just the width of the sensor makes more sense to do that.
Yeah. And a lot of these cameras are shooting 6K and downsampling anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I see that. I don't think you're going to see it in the APS-C sensor cameras, although you could. It's definitely the next thing, but you're talking about then more pixel density, I think, at that. But, you're shooting 4K on a micro four thirds sensor. It makes sense that you should be able to shoot 8K on a full frame sensor, being that it's more than double the size. So I think that, and I think it's just it's an easy argument. Oh yeah, I'd like more resolution. I won't turn that down. And but I do think that if we get into which I think is Nicole's space that she's talking a little bit going to talk about on the bit depth space, I think if we get too deep offering that at higher resolutions, we're going to start having problems with people having computers that can actually handle it.
Already just with 6K. And actually, I think that 10-bit in all cameras goes along with 6K in all cameras. Just like those seem like the two most obvious advancements that are already showing up in like the higher end cameras, and
we're seeing it in like firmware updates.
And I actually
stuff like
think that like 10-bit is more valuable than 6K, although I guess it depends on what you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not doing a lot of color space, or you're not working with a lot of dynamic range or that kind of thing, that the added colors is nice, but it's sure nicer to have like, be producing in HD and have like, you could do a super close up and a wide in the same shot. That would be rad. And producing in 4K, you get an awesome crop. That's how I'd use it. I don't think I'd be producing, although I did produce our heads up video, the Blackmagic 4K versus 6K in 6K.
There's no real standard for 6K at this point. So it's not like, UHD 4K or DCI 4K where there's like specific whatever resolution it's supposed to be.
Yeah, well, in 6K delivery.
So how do you deliver it? That's kind of what I was getting at, is like where do you send it at this resolution?
And is there any like demand for any kind of 6K anything, right? Like, does anyone even know what 6K is? I mean, I feel like when 4K was out, there was a good chunk of people who knew that, that's the resolution that movie screens are in, or something, right? Like, even in the video world, 6K, I don't think was much of a thing until camera manufacturers started to say that it was a thing. It was.
I feel like 6K
4K to 8K
on the way to 8K, and it's just like what 2.5K was for a second before 4K became ubiquitous in as the next format to shoot for. It's like the step in resolution. Like, we can offer you this new thing, and like I hope that with that comes bit depth and those kinds of update. But I think that it's just on its way. And I mean, we go to CES, we're going to see probably a 16K screen or something stupid that isn't ever going to make it into someone's house, or who makes that kind of content? Who's shooting at 16K at that rate? There's no cameras that shoot that. So how are you doing that? Are they combining cameras? What's the, there's just no, it's kind of the Wild West as far as that goes.
So I remember when 4K was just like becoming a thing, there was some really weird stuff happening. So JVC, I want to say, came out with a camera that was shooting 4K, but it was actually like shooting 4 1080 clips and then sort of stitching them together.
Yeah.
And then you would have cameras that would come out, like I think Nikon did this, where they would release, their new whatever it was, could shoot 4K video, but it was like for a maximum of 5 minutes.
Yeah, or like Sony had, you could get 4K, but only out the HDMI, so it internally only capture HD, but out the HDMI you could do 4K, and so I think that's kind of our way into 10-bit. Is how we're seeing that. So
right now we're getting these cameras that will shoot 6K, and the trade-off is like, they're big and bulky cameras. Like they're the Blackmagic is a video camera.
Well,
the Panasonic is a video camera.
It's not just that the cameras themselves are large. It's like all of the storage demands that come along with 6K recording, and then the computer has to be powerful enough to edit that. So I think there's like the same hurdles that 4K went over, of like, first of all, getting it into the cameras, and secondly, getting it out of the cameras, and like, where do you put it between the time where it's recorded and distributed, and even distributed, then what do you do with it? And even if you are producing in HD, you still have to deal with these huge 6K files.
Yeah, well,
at some point,
when I was shooting in 6K with the S1H, and all I shot was A-roll. It was having my computer, which is an iMac Pro, fully spec'd out. The machine was having a hard time playing it in real time. When I was in Final Cut Pro, it would play in real time, but in Premiere, it didn't want to. And I haven't edited without real time playback as far as just for a long time. That was like maybe the first forays into HD from SD, when like the demands were like double the resources versus what it is now. I don't know. It just it was chugging on. It's like, how do you make a cut with pacing and stuff with it jittery?
Like, do you think it was worth it? Like that workflow hassle to be worth it, to be able to have the flexibility of 6K? Like,
I'd have to do proxies,
a lot of people
or
probably would
just
say
lower the
no.
resolution.
I'll just shoot in a lower resolution.
Yeah, I mean,
why deal with it?
I mean, I think it's kind of like RAW in that respect. Is like, don't shoot RAW unless you have a need for that RAW. Shooting in 6K.
I know one of our authors would argue with you.
Always shoot
intensely about
always
that.
shoot RAW.
Always shoot RAW if you can, because I mean, given the caveat of, do you have enough storage space? Like, that's the big one, I guess.
And do you have time to like convert all the individual frames from RAW into clips before you start editing.
Right. So
well, it depends on what kind of RAW you have, really, too, right? Because
it depends on your workflow.
Yeah, some RAW fits right into a workflow. I shoot in RAW as often as I can, but the biggest thing is like I shoot on the C200, shoot Canon RAW Light. Well, I'll need to grade it now because it's in law, it's C-Log for sure. Like there's no way out that. So you got to do that grading, and so I'll shoot in the H.264 just so I can get around grading, and it'll be like, well, it's just an A-roll shot that I lit right and exposed properly. It looks money. There's no reason to go that next step.
And I think like there's going to be a lot of people who agree with you, but then there's going to be the people who are trying to get specific looks or who just want that much more control and flexibility. And it's like, if it's practical enough, then you just build in that flexibility.
All you need is the new Mac Pro that's $75,000, and then you'll be fine.
For
6K, not 8K though. You'll be at 8K. You'll be done for.
So Chris,
and not for 10-bit.
We're starting to see 6K like inch its way down in terms of the more expensive cameras working their way down to the lesser expensive cameras getting 6K. Are you foreseeing that there will be like a spot where 6K is going to be on a consumer level camera, but you're going to have all these big trade-offs as a result? Like you can't shoot any more than 24 frames per second, and it'll only record for 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah, I think
or it'll only do output via HDMI and 6K.
I think there's going to be at least one cycle of crap 6K offerings. Like you'll get it, but it'll be like you said, only this frame rate. Like you can get 6K, but it's only $29.97. What? Like what? Just weird stuff like that I'm sure is just a technical hurdle, or is like something they want to hold off for better firmware. But it's always weird when the new formats come out. Like no one knows what to do. And right now we're at a media where we're jumping into the next types of media in these cameras as well. So you have the demand of that media. I think that there's just there's going to be a year of kind of finding the way till their standard is required really, and then that standard will format what will happen from there, I think.
I feel like the high-end cameras are going to set the format in the way that DCI 4K was established and UHD 4K was established. Like the distribution models or whatever are probably going to establish the format standards, and then it'll like work down from there. If like once there's a thing to want in the high-end professional cameras, then more and more consumer-level cameras are going to have it because the consumers are going to see the value there, if there is going to be value in 6K on a consumer. Like I have a hard time seeing why a consumer would want 6K except for like gear lust and I want something fancy.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, I don't think the demand's there. I think it's just this is the next thing that'll be easy to deliver. That'll be a good bullet point on why you should buy the newest model.
So follow-up question here. I'll throw it to Nicole and then go to Chris, I guess. Nicole, would you ever see yourself choosing to shoot a 6K video if the camera you're using, happily had, I guess, better 4K options in terms of better frame rates or bit depth or what have you?
Probably not. Like I would choose 10-bit 4K over 6K 8-bit. I would choose probably 4K 60 over 30 in 6K, just because like my existing hardware can support 4K a lot better than 6K, and why go through the hassle of dealing with 6K at all if 4K offers better options anyway? Mm-hmm. Like I don't see the appeal.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what do you think?
So 10-bit 4K coming from say GH5, GH5S, S1H, S1. Those files don't always play real nice too already at 4K. Like the H.265 is not nearly as happy playing as like H.264 or a ProRes file. So
is that because of support, or is that because of hardware limitations?
I think it just requires more to decode.
Because
for playback, I think it's just more demanding when needing to play that back.
I guess I don't know that much about HBAC or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it's a file size or data rate issue.
Yeah, because I thought that was supposed to be super fast and efficient and small.
Yeah. If all it had to do was play back each frame as fast as the drive could spit it out, then it shouldn't be a problem. But there's still problems.
Yeah,
I think there's a compatibility people are still catching up on H.265.
Well, that's so.
Maybe?
I have a
Software?
very new
so.
hardware, very good. I mean, not very new, but new enough and high end enough that it was high end when this stuff was coming out, and it just sometimes doesn't. It's not that it doesn't always play. It plays back most of the time, right? And then every once in a while, it'll get this caught up thing.
How about this?
Kind of like you added too many effects on a.
I'd rather work with that problem and have more flexibility over my color than have more flexibility over my framing and have the same problem with 6K.
Totally.
Or a worse problem.
Or a worse problem. Probably a worse problem from what I've seen.
Unless you're using proxies, I guess.
So here's
Yeah.
what I prefer is the new 12-bit output of the Z6 and capturing it in ProRes RAW. Now, if I didn't already have Final Cut because we do that stuff as well, I wouldn't be able to encode it, but then I get to encode it in HDR, 12-bit ProRes, or no, 10-bit. But either way, all sorts of latitude, and the playback is easy. It's because it's a ProRes file, and regardless of the heaviness of a ProRes file, I am on an Apple machine, so it likely wants to play back nice because of that.
So,
but
Chris,
it's by far the best.
We have had the actually. Do we still have? No, we don't have the Blackmagic anymore.
No, we don't have the black.
Do we have anything that shoots 6K?
S1H, but it's out of the building. Right now.
Yeah. Okay, so S1H comes back. Let's say we have it for another month. Are you gonna shoot your videos for Videomaker in 6K?
No, because it doesn't have XLR inputs. I just don't want to have to deal with an external recorder or a peripheral that's going to add noise to the signal. I'd just rather go right into the camera, especially because the camera has, at least we have some good mic preamps in it. But no, because the 6K is actually 4x3. So Nicole, I don't know if it's got the D-squeeze on it.
What?
But it's 4x3 6K. And
Caveat.
so really, that's why I think that it's going to be like more like people are going to offer the 5.5 and 5.7K. They're going to say 6K, but it's going to have the caveat of
S1H
is
is 6. Is that? Did I hear that?
Yeah.
S1H is 4x3. 6K?
I think it's 3 by
Yes.
2 actually. I saw the specs earlier.
It's a square regardless.
But is that because the sensor, 35mm sensor, is a square?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
because
That's-
it's using.
So 6K is easier because you can do it. I get it. So 6K is easier because the sensor shape, not like the actual size of it. So
there's-
6K, but it's 6K
But 6K
with a
width is
weird
still.
aspect ratio.
Yeah, it's using the full sensor, whereas instead of pixel binning or downsampling.
Yeah, so that's not really usable 6K, like out the camera. You know what I mean? Like, no, people don't want the 3:2 aspect ratio. But why it's valuable is if you're using anamorphic lenses.
Yeah.
And they,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if they
Yeah,
have the
they-
D-squeeze built in. They did on previous cameras, but that is what it's for.
Panasonic has been good about anamorphic support.
Yeah, and the I mean, for normal productions, you do get to move up and down, so you have that. Although, be aware of it while you're shooting, having guides in your monitor so that you know what 16:9 part of it you wanted to use, or 17:9 or whatever you're producing in. But I think that's part of the weirdness of when we switch over. Right now, 4K is pretty. We have two standards, right? DCI and UHD. Seems UHD's you pretty much across the board. DCI
Just
is
because television
sometimes.
support. DCI is for cinema distribution.
Exactly. But and it's like the added line item that, I can shoot 200 more pixels, haha. But in 6K, like we have this 4x3 right now, I'm sure there's going to be more standards. I think actually there is a DCI 6K standard. But moreover,
and that's what we need in cameras.
Yeah, and moreover though, we have Red already making an 8K camera that's been out for a while that is very heavily used in media. So it's like,
Here's the very
that.
highest end. That's not very
But
fair.
but for all of us underneath it, get to fill in with you get 6K first for a little bit.
Well, let's see. Maybe it's a good segue to bit depth. So, Nicole, why don't you tell us about your prediction?
She kind of said it in the last.
Yeah.
I feel like I covered my argument in refuting the 6K standard. So that was. I actually had two predictions, but we can get to the other one.
You can
Okay.
switch it up.
Oh, I only got one. You could only have one, Nicole.
Well, mine
Just
was okay. So the 8-bit versus 10-bit, I definitely think that 10-bit is going to become more predominant, and people are going to want it more once because I just feel like people want more and more control over their image, and they want it to look cinematic, and like that's always kind of been the goal with these video cameras. But then going in the other direction, I guess, I think my other prediction was that there's going to be more cameras with vertical video support, like native vertical video.
I agree with that. And I'd actually say one step further, that there's going to be vertical video support for tripods and other types of support that are going to be built in. There already is that kind of, for photographers, right? You have that little flip, but what about a gimbal? There's people that are producing for vertical video that want to shoot off a gimbal.
Yeah.
How do I set my camera? Or don't want to take the square out of the middle. They want to use the full resolution just vertically of their camera. What do they do, and how do you attach that? All that kind of stuff. I think that's coming as a need. Yeah.
So Canon last year released at least two cameras with native vertical video support, the M200 and the G7X3. Both have so-called native vertical video support, and I think Canon is kind of catering to the vloggers in a lot of ways, because they recognize that a lot of people use their cameras probably. But yeah, I think that is,
I believe, on the
more and more popular format.
A6600, instead of doing native video, it just moves where your information is. So on the screen, when you go vertical, the exposure and all that stuff just slides to the bottom and lets you shoot that way. Yeah. It just has accelerometer in it to know it's on sideways, and just moves the screen for you.
Gyro.
Maybe we should just briefly talk about what does it mean to have native vertical video support. So there's that. Turn the camera sideways, and then the user interface turns sideways. Mm-hmm. Or is it use the camera normally, and it just, I don't know, uses this, center part of the sensor and pulls out the proper resolution using a vertical aspect ratio?
I think I have never used these cameras in that way, but from what I understand, the G7X, you can just hold it vertically, portrait orientation, and the metadata reflects that orientation. So when you import it into your editing program, it's vertical rather than having to rotate it.
So the clip itself, the aspect ratio of the file when you load it onto your computer is vertical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it auto plays in that, kind of like with your phone, if you start horizontal and then you go vertical, it's like it doesn't know what to do.
So we got to get some cameras now with rotating sensors.
Rotating sensors, so you can use it. Well, I think
you can turn it. Yeah.
Well, even phones, you got to turn the phone, I guess, right?
Yeah. What about just guides? I mean, honestly, guides. I mean, getting to shoot vertically, that's great, and I think that's the best because you get to use all of the resolution that you normally have. But
with the guides,
can I just have a center guide and know that's to cut it? I'd even do that.
No, because you don't get the full resolution.
Well, because I think that a lot of people are going to want to create content from the same shot.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to just shoot this so that it looks good in 16:9, but I know that it's also going to be a vertical video on Instagram or whatever else, so I think that you're seeing those two productions. The only problem is taking the center out and then throwing it on the camera. Like usually it ends up looking blurry unless you're shooting at a real high resolution. You're not getting that nice resolution for the vertical video. It'd be nice to be able to use the full aspect of the sensor.
I think
that's the purpose.
In all likelihood, the thing that Nicole is talking about will happen. And the thing that you're talking about will probably only happen on video cameras, camcorders.
Yeah, that kind of form factor where it's not natural to turn them sideways.
Or that have guides in the first place.
Also, yeah, exactly. That's the main thing.
Adobe has that, what the heck is that feature called? It's a feature where it just follows the subject using their Adobe Sensei AI technology. And that will probably be more of a thing available in more editing systems as it's developed or whatever perfected, where it's like recognizing the need for media of different aspect ratios. So you don't have to frame it up right. It just like follows the subject no matter what.
It'll make that. I think that's good. I mean, it's kind of like pan and scan, really, for that matter. Whenever you change the shooting format from 4:3 to 16:9, I remember when movies first started getting. Or more show like TV shows like Friends. Friends is now available to watch. Well, not anymore on Netflix, but it's in HD. And someone had to choose on every cut how to center that image. And so it's like someone had to go through all that stuff to make sure that they weren't cutting off, Phoebe's head because they moved to a 16:9 and just letterboxed it. So every time that format changes, you get that. And
reverse letterboxed it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's cropped it, right?
Just cropped it. Yeah, exactly. And
they had that problem with The Simpsons recently on Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
They were cropping the 4:3 to 16:9, and The Simpsons they're famous for like putting jokes in
their shows. Yeah,
and so some of the jokes are getting clipped out because the characters had to be on screen.
You talk about a painting, you get the Mona Lisa, and you go, I need this in a different aspect ratio. You're going to get a different image,
Yeah, that's right. So, anyways, I think Nicole's right. I think you're half right.
Yeah, it's just
I could be half wrong too.
I think
and you are.
Yeah.
the main point of that prediction, whether or not I don't think it's going to be a super common feature in like higher end cameras or anything, but definitely consumer level cameras, definitely cameras targeting vloggers, online creators, video marketers even. But it also just to point out a larger trend of online media is definitely here to stay, and social media has different requirements than have been served by the traditional media like video cameras.
I saw a headline that was, could a YouTuber make it to mainstream media? And I thought that was really backwards. I'm like, no. Can mainstream media capitalize on the YouTuber success? It's more like, hey, you guys got to adapt to this stuff because I'm already, where's the strength actually at? And it's like, it's not dying. It's dying in TV
without getting too much into going onto a tangent here. There's an article in the New York Times about their predictions for what'll happen between now and 2030, and one of them was that influencers will have their own IPO. Like the influencer's personality will be a publicly traded company.
Ooh.
See, I thought of that a little bit just because you think of PewDiePie, 100 million subscribers. Say he wants to stop doing that, made $70 million last year, but he just, I'm sick of making a video every day. I just want to retire. He still has this channel with that many subscribers. If you were a broadcast television channel, they would just sell it. And so, are those going to be channels? Is there going to be a PewDiePie channel that our great-grandchildren don't know who PewDiePie is, but it's like, what does ABC stand for on TV? I don't know.
I think the Fine Brothers did this. So, you guys know the Fine Brothers on YouTube. So they had a YouTube channel for a long time. I don't know if they ever sold it, but they eventually, kind of transformed it into more of a regular entertainment channel, which they were not the main. They just weren't on camera. It wasn't driven off of their personalities. And, it's like, I think it's still called Fine Brothers Entertainment or something, but who are the Warner Brothers? Same kind of thing, right?
I think that would work for some channels and not others. I don't think PewDiePie could do it because PewDiePie's brand is himself.
Oh, totally.
I think he totally could do it.
But
this is how.
It would take the transition. He would need to go, I want to do this, and then they would make a transition to make it so that it would be easier to do that. Right now, it'd be really hard to do that tomorrow, but
here's how it happens. It's a big major tangent.
Okay.
Prediction for 2030. PewDiePie has one episode a week in which he has a co-host, and they do that for 6 months, and then now the co-host is on, two or three episodes a week, and then the co-host is on every episode. And then the co-host is on every episode, but PewDiePie is only on 3 episodes a week. And this whole process goes on for a few years before PewDiePie isn't on there anymore. And PewDiePie is the name of the channel. It's not his name isn't PewDiePie. It's his what it was
Felix Schellberg.
Yeah, what do they call it? What's the word for his a phony name? Not a nom de plume. Yeah, it's a pseudonym.
Nom de plume works too.
Yeah, he's not a writer, I guess, but
yeah.
But PewDiePie is just the name of the channel, and it's thematically whatever he is, but his content is. But I think he absolutely could phase himself out of his own channel.
Well, it's Ryan's Toy Review. No joke, he's got toys in every place, and my son's got them, and they're called Ryan's Toy Review. He's got a cartoon doing the same thing, and it's like, but they're positioning that now, knowing that the kid's going to hit puberty or something.
Age.
Yeah, and they're going to need
to
do something. Yeah. Well, PewDiePie,
PewDiePie's going to age, but his audience is aging with him, I think, and maturing with him in a lot of ways. But yeah, some channels I still think would not be able to, like Best Dressed. She's grown 2 million subscribers in 1 year. It's pretty crazy, and it's her. It's her personality, it's her perspective. I'm pretty sure that Best Dressed can only be run by Ashley, and that's it.
This reminds me of TV shows, though. Like a good example for this is that 70s show at the end. Eric, he goes to Africa, and his cousin all of a sudden shows up and starts dating his girlfriend. And it's like, now they jumped the shark, which is, of course, I think they did the same thing in Happy Days back in the 70s when that was produced. Is like they introduce a new character, and they try to take over. Man, Law and Order, how many times have they switched leads? They do the same thing on TV shows. So
I'll take it back. And like Doctor Who, whatever, is famous for having different
007,
doctors. But so
it's just a rebranding of the same thing.
I think they could do it, but it would change the spirit of the channel, and it would probably change the audience. So it might still be profitable and successful and whatever, but the original viewers, I don't think would stick through the transition.
Maybe not, but the channel itself could continue on. There, like Chris said, there's value in that, right? Just having the channel with all those subscribers.
Yeah.
Just
like never post again.
I have two things though.
Still make money.
YouTube
exactly.
probably wouldn't ever allow it to happen at that size. They'd be like, no, that's ours, and it's in some kind of specs somewhere.
I don't know about that.
I can see them
because
trying.
PewDiePie is going to be like, he's going to want to cash in on that, right?
Leverage at some point.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about it is that what good is a subscriber? I'd be curious for PewDiePie if it's much greater than us even, of his percentage of subscribers actually watching his videos per time. I bet you it's, well, for him, it's got to be a lot of subscribers.
He's got a larger percentage of the total viewers.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. But when you just look at it, what's a subscriber really worth on YouTube these days? And it's not as valuable as it once was because it doesn't guarantee you a view. It doesn't even guarantee that they're going to show the video as an option to your subscriber. So,
not unless they actually watch your videos every week.
Yeah.
When
PewDiePie introduces this co-host, that co-host is going to become popular over time. If the co-host doesn't become popular, he's going to get a new co-host.
Yeah.
And then that co-host is going to become popular, and people are going to like to watch that person's stuff as well. And
the Tonight Show, all those things, they drop John and Carson off the name of the Tonight Show.
It would be a long process for maybe not that much benefit. I guess if you want to sell the channel, okay, maybe that's a lot of money. I don't know.
Or if he wants to run the channel but not be in every video.
Yeah.
I think that you see that a lot.
There's lots of creative things that these people can do, though, beyond just like.
I'm being a bad moderator here, so.
Yeah. We're only at 32 minutes. We're okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now my prediction. I predict that Red will release a new sub $10,000 camera this year.
This year. Didn't they do that once already and fail?
Twice.
Wait.
They had the Scarlet, which the Scarlet. I don't know if the Scarlet ever made it below 10,000. Maybe when they were just like phasing it out, they dropped the price or something. But then there was the Red Raven. And it's been a while since the Raven came out. I think they're going to take another stab at it.
Well, and the Raven was in super high demand, and they couldn't fulfill orders. So if they're better at predicting that part of it, but I think they would have to bring it. I think the biggest thing about that is Red Code Raw. You can get Red Code Raw in anything. You're going to have a better workflow.
Yeah, we know that they want to release, or they want to reach a more consumer market. They've attempted it twice, and the Red Raven, like you said, was popular, but they couldn't keep up. And they tried it with the phone, and the phone sucked. But they're good at making cameras, so
the name is still very valuable in that respect. And the new cameras are real good.
Yeah. Yep. So, given the timing, I think it's an inevitability. Unless Red is just like, we give up, only super high-end, cameras from here on out. But I just don't see that being a thing. No,
because they're going to run out of customers. I mean, at the high end, you only have so many coming in that space.
They want to grow, right?
If you want to grow, you either got to sell that guy another camera, or you can sell someone new, a camera. They always have to have the aspirational.
Yeah.
Mercedes doesn't exist without their very earliest, cheapest line.
Well, Red has a prestige among within the independent filmmaker community that I think is super valuable for them, and
they make a really neat product.
Yeah,
that's very unique.
If they make something that's within, because it's already more within reach than even higher end production cameras that you might not actually buy. You might only rent, and your studio is going to rent them for you. But if they made something that was truly within reach of whoever, that would probably be super popular because it would have the Red name attached to it. It would have to have Red Code Raw, or what's the point? And then like people would definitely buy that.
Also, it seems like if they don't do this, eventually they'll just get eaten up by
Black magic.
Everyone who's making cheap cameras.
As soon as they lease Red Code Raw to another brand to use in their cameras,
why would they
be done
ever
for.
do that? Never do that.
But Red Code Raw's been out for how long, and no one's been able to do anything even close to as good as it. I mean, just it's not the dynamic range. It's not that. It's just its flexibility and its efficiency. No one's even come close. Now, given I'm sure there's a lot of money being spent to try to make new codecs, and they've been working on it for 10 years, and they just have to get to that finish line, and then all of a sudden we'll have H.266. I don't know.
Something.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually that was a quick one. Maybe it's a good time to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a minute to talk about some news items. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, if you like today's episode, we encourage you to give us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's a big help for podcasts like ours. Okay, welcome back. Let's see, we've got a couple items today. The first one I think is actually pretty dang interesting. Chris was just ho-humming it a second ago, but DJI is supposedly making a drone that doesn't fly. That's like a ground-based drone
that's called an RC car.
Yeah,
It's not
Chris
called a
calls
drone. It's called an RC car.
What's the difference between an RC car and a drone, really?
Yeah, actually.
RC?
What if we call it a rover?
A rover?
That's what I want to call it.
Well, so the thing about a drone is that it's like stabilized and all this kind of stuff in the sky. It's not a helicopter. It's there's the drone part of it. I don't know.
The drone is just
autonomously unmanned.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I was gonna say no driver.
Yeah.
What is it? UAV.
Unmanned vehicle.
Unmanned autonomous.
I think it's aerial vehicle, UAV.
Yeah.
But that's specific terminology for UAVs.
But more of my
Flying
point is,
drones.
How many
And drones,
shots do you
though,
need?
It's just the term drone is
Yeah, it's
unmanned.
generic.
Yeah,
Well,
generic.
So regardless, I think that a drone shot, in the air, a typical drone that we're used to these days, super useful. It replaces a lot of things and is bringing really high-end shots to really low-end productions. Whereas, one of our writers, Jason Miller, built one of these and put just an Osmo on it at first. And, if you need that shot, that's what people have been doing it. They've just been buying a RC car, strapping a gimbal to it and getting their shot because it's such a specific specialty shot that you need this low angle shot.
Did people say the same thing about drone shots? I don't need a freaking aerial perspective. That's so specific. Like,
I don't know. I was trying to get there with the jib, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's so much easier just to throw a drone up.
I think this is a highly specialized professional piece of equipment that will not have the broad appeal that a drone has.
No, but it'll probably replace those that are trying to build it themselves. Oh, yeah. I don't need to build it. DJI does make things more affordable. I mean, they did that with drones. There was people flying drones
that they had
made themselves, and then they just went, hey, we can do this and use it within our little ecosystem, and then all of a sudden a lot easier.
So this
but it's
looks
not hard to drive an RC truck, whereas helicopter.
This looks quite a bit more advanced than an RC vehicle, or RC car. So it's got these. I'm going to describe them as crossed spherical wheels, I guess. So the wheels are like a ball, but it's a cross. So the corners are cut out. So it looks to me like they're on these casters.
DB8, is that what we're talking about?
So kind of. And we can see two, but this has got to be a 2-dimensional image. So what I'm imagining is a 4-wheeled square-shaped thing that's effectively on motorized casters that will do forward and back, side to side, and anything in between. And so, an RC car can go forward and back, and it can go side to side while going forward and back. This is, I think, an extra dimension of mobility. And that combined with these like pretty serious looking shocks, I think it's going to be some like pretty rad looking video that people aren't getting with their RC cars. But like I said, highly specialized, like, a drone. Any consumer would love to put a drone up and, have video of themselves snowboarding. It just looks amazing. I don't know that everyone's going to need this little, driving thing.
How big is it?
I was thinking,
yeah. So if you
scale?
look at the, you have it in front of you, Nicole?
I have it, but it doesn't look. I mean, like I can guess.
So you see the thing on the top. Anyone can go, by the way, videomaker.com. You can see this. The thing on the top looks to me like the camera module that's on the Inspire.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like the Osmo Pro, because they make you can use those lenses on an Osmo.
Pretty small.
It's
but
probably
not
the size of
tiny.
an Inspire, is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
So
Yeah.
if I would say there'd be a couple things I would need it to do. One, it would need to have a long battery life, probably longer than a normal drone.
It's got to.
Yeah, I mean,
'Cause it
just
doesn't have
because
to
it's
hold
not having
itself
to
in
keep
the air.
Yeah, exactly. And it would have to have really, really, it should be able to go really slow. And just because I always end up finding myself with motorized anything, I want to do a big fast move, and then it ends up being that really slow one that really does it. And so I'm thinking of using that. If you use that just on a tabletop, and it was now I don't need to bring my slider. I have a motorized thing that I can use this for. Now the cooler thing would be is if there's a button on it, and all of a sudden it pops out, and it's a sky drone too,
And it has a gun on
and it
it.
hands me
And
a
it
candy
can
bar
float.
and says,
And it's a submarine.
"And it's a submarine." Yeah, and it,
No, I mean
Gives
that
me
would be
cash.
cool, obviously, but if it's the size of an Inspire,
Yeah,
and
so
it's like
it's like
2 feet tall or something.
yeah, probably
A foot,
2 foot
and a
by
half?
2 foot.
Yeah. So it's like it is getting low angle shots, and it's roaming around, and it's autonomous, so you can go places that you can't walk.
and stabilized. And I'm betting they're going to put this thing out, and they're going to have like this crazy demo of it, like driving downstairs and being, smooth as silk.
Yeah, or like
yeah, you can't do that with your RC car.
off-roading somewhere.
Because I went to SEMA and they had a lot of RC car companies there, and it was rad because you could get like your cool old Bronco, and the wheels were super articulate, and they had these cool demonstration areas that, but I don't know. I just think it's such a specific.
It is
shot.
specific, but man, I hope it's real because it looks fun to me.
It looks, yeah, it probably,
especially if it's fast.
yeah. I guess, I mean,
Yeah, you
that
could get some
chasing scene, all that
cool,
kind of stuff.
Interesting perspectives for sure.
They've already been building those types of machines, for a while. So I think
Imagine,
it's not
Custom
even a new
building.
shot, but yeah, custom.
Imagine the scene from The Shining when Danny's riding his big wheel through the halls of the hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be I just put it in a wagon, attach a string to them, and roto out the string.
There you go.
That'll work.
DJ, I should hire you.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Lo-fi.
could save a lot of money.
Lo-fi.
Yeah.
You don't need a phone. You need 2 cans and a string.
So Chris thinks it's lame.
Yeah, I'm not.
Nicole thinks it's awesome.
I think it's cool.
Nicole's skeptical.
I hope they call it a rover. It looks like a rover.
It does. It
Rover,
looks like
that's a
something that
better
would be on the
autonomous
moon or
rover.
something, right?
Well, then that would be some good tech. Although it is still China selling us stuff. So
To me, it looks like the perfect thing to put your own camera on, and the diagram has the Zenmuse camera, which is, I don't know, kind of a bummer, I guess, but those cameras are okay.
yeah, but they tend to release their gimbals with that, and then all of a sudden they open it. They end up making the mount your own camera to
No,
it
they made
option.
that. They made that, I think, out of demand. But it's harder for drones, though. I was gonna say because the balance is way more important. So on this,
Yeah,
maybe it'll be easier to add your own camera.
exactly.
Well, and they have. I mean, gimbals are gotten really, really cheap.
Okay, so the next one, Chris, maybe you can tell us a little bit about it. Nikon now supports RAW video out.
Yeah, it's RAW, so 12-bit RAW, and so you have to be able to capture it externally, and so there's really not any way to capture RAW externally except for with the Ninja 5. I'm not sure if there's any support with the others, but they sent us one, by the way, and it's the Filmmaker's kit, so it comes built in, comes with a lens, a gimbal, and Ninja 5 recorder, but I've just been using the camera in the Ninja 5, and I had thought I screwed up. I was shooting some A-roll for our video coming up, and I brought it back to the computer, and man, everything was blown out, and I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. I was really concerned, and I was like, man, I spent a lot of time shooting this. Did not look bad. What did I do wrong? And they did send this packet that I should have read before I started, and I'm
Now, who
like,
does
man,
that?
yeah, and so I'm like, well, let me just see if I can pull down the highlights and see how actual bad it is. And I started pulling down, and then it was like perfectly exposed where stuff was completely blown out. And I went, well, let me check something. So I changed the the bit depth on my scopes, and sure enough, it was an HDR, and it was going up to 1,000 IRE, and I was able to bring stuff back down, and it looked fantastic. I was really, really blown away, and just super amount of flexibility. I mean, in this, I could have brought in all of the shadows up. It pretty amazing. I was really blown away by that. But did I need that? I don't think so. I mean, not for what I was shooting it for, but it's like a $200 option, and you have to have the recorder, and it's ProRes RAW. So although it's coming, I've read that it's coming support for other things. It's currently not available yet for Premiere. And so I had to transcode it all using Final Cut. But I still was able to, that was actually the transcoded file that I was freaked out about. So I imagine if I even had the original ProRes RAW, maybe I'd have even more, but I was able to pull all the details out. I wasn't clipping in any way once I was looking at the scopes. So it's pretty fantastic. It's not the most simple thing to turn on. It's like 4 settings, and I understand why they gave us a little sheet, although they had set it all up for me beforehand, so it's just working already. So when I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, that's how it's working. But so it's not like just put it in RAW mode and you're good to go. It's like a couple settings, but then you're shooting an N-Log. But I was really blown away, and I already like the Z6. If the Z6 just had unlimited record time internally, I don't know if and it had some XLR inputs, I'd want to use it all the time. So maybe Nikon needs to make a cinema camera, and then I'd be really stoked.
So people can watch as they see the footage that you shot, I guess, on the video that's coming out. Actually, will it be out by the time this podcast
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's it's kind of in limbo at the moment. But
the video is the Z7 versus the
D850. No, it's actually the 5D Mark IV versus the EOS R.
Oh, okay. So keep an eye on that.
For both of them. They're both going to be published. But the Nikon one, I plan to shoot all the stuff with the Z6 as well. So
but
you'll be able to
with
see
with the 5D versus the EOS R, it's all the product shots, the in-studio shots that you see of the cameras themselves.
If there's color behind them, yeah, because I shot with a RGB WW light and added some gel light to the background, trying to make it all epic and stuff. There's a lot of mixed max footage in those that are from my reviews of those cameras as well. But whenever the cameras are together, that's what and they looked horrible. When I brought them in, I was like, oh my God, this is not good. In fact, I've had to show both of you, like, hey, look what this did. It's like, this shot looks bad, doesn't it? Check this out. Turn it on, and all of a sudden it looks great. Yeah, and it's like not noisy or anything, and very bright and vibrant. I was very pleased with how it came out.
That's a trick. If you're not terribly happy with your footage in general, show someone some really bad footage right beforehand, and then your regular bad.
Set up expectations. Yeah. That's how it goes.
No, the footage looked great. I think it's the best product shot video footage we've ever done.
Yeah. Now I also got to shoot with the Rhino Arc II, which I'm getting the hang of it a little bit more, so I'm able to do some parallax shots, and it's getting a little bit used. It's a little shaky, actually, kind of surprisingly, but it's maybe it was because I had an external recorder on the top of the camera as well.
Yeah, your center of balance is super tall.
Yeah, super off. But regardless, it's nice to be able to do that movement. I was able to do that for the longest time with the Rhino Evo with motion with the Shoot Tools auto pan, but the auto pan just one day stopped working. And so I've only had a slider shot for the longest time. It's nice to be able to have an auto pan as well, or auto pan and tilt.
So it seems to me like 2019 was like the year of Nikon. At least it seems from Videomaker's perspective.
Yeah, they really they seem like they care about video.
Uh-huh. If any brand needs to say, hey, we care about video, it's the brand that didn't do a lot of video that wants to be in that space, right?
Yeah.
But I think they're overcompensating, which I love in the cameras. They're giving you more than the value you would for anybody else. So the Z6 versus the A7 III, there's just the specs are greater on the Z6. And they're the same price. And I think Nikon's just trying to give more value because they're having to convince people to go with their new lens system and whatnot over, the E-mount that's been around for long enough for mirrorless. But everybody's offering mirrorless now. And so there's lots of flavors and lots of different ways to get there. It's exciting because before it was just like whatever Sony fed up, gave us, we were like, oh, can I have some more? Thank you.
Nikon's smart too to include the adapter. with the new cameras.
Yeah, you don't even have to pay for it anymore. It was like, oh, we're throwing it in. It's $150 value. And I just looked at the prices of everything, and it's like nothing doesn't come with the F to Z mount adapter. So you always are going to get both. And the cool thing is all the lenses work interchangeably and don't have any performance change when using it, which is really the benefit, I guess, of the manufacturer's adapters versus third party, though I'm sure some third party adapters work just fine.
So Sony was like running rampant with no competition for a couple of years in the mirrorless world, and
mirrorless full frame and giving video features that people cared about. I mean, Canon had so much to lose, and they just continually were not fulfilling what people were wanting, and Sony was, or at least Sony was letting people think they were. I think that you'll still see. It'll be interesting to see what new technology Sony brings, because they're behind. None of their cameras offer 10-bit for video shooters or have for anything out the the HDMI that's not captured internally.
They make them so small.
That's
their problem.
There's some things that they need to offer for them to be as good. I mean, I was disappointed with the EOS R only because of the crop, because I actually really love the video from it. In fact, I'm on it right now. But the crop is really hard to get over, because it's like, oh, why should I pay for a full frame when I get, such a significant amount of it I don't get
It's
to
effectively
use.
not full frame 4K video.
Well,
it isn't full frame.
Yeah, it's APS-C or a little bit smaller of the sensor size that you're using when shooting in 4K. So it's like, if you're not a hybrid shooter, but it shoots beautiful video photos too, and if you can deal with the crop, because if you have the right lenses, then it's not a hindrance at all.
Well, the good news is all the camera manufacturers are in on full frame 4K right now, so hopefully that'll just mean like an incredible amount of competition.
Yeah, or just prices going significant lower.
Yeah.
I mean, Canon with the RP was a pretty big deal. $1,200 for a full frame camera, that's significant.
Well, what was the 6D was full frame? Remember the price of that camera when it came out? Jeez, that was a long time ago.
6D Mark II. It's the same sensor as the 6D Mark II in the EOS R. Just like the 5D Mark IV sensor is the same as the EOS R.
So the 6D Mark II, let's see, MSRP, not the street price, $1,200.
$1,200. So yeah, and it's the same. You have the same kind of drawbacks that it has. You should. It's the same. I think it's got a faster or the newer image sensor for the mirrorless camera. But anyhow, I digress.
The year of Nikon.
The year of Nikon 2019. We gave them a lot of awards, but I just made a video of our best DSLR and mirrorless cameras, and everybody wins a little bit.
They're all strong in different ways.
Yeah. It's amazing how still with full frame, how attractive still the Micro Four Thirds cameras still are. Yeah. It's like, all those features are they worth the extra money or the extra cost of lenses and all that kind of stuff? And for video shooters, it's actually a lot easier choice than, if you're a photographer trying to choose a Micro Four Thirds sensor. Someone might, question your prowess. I don't know.
All right, so let's see. That's about it for today, I think. We only got 2 news items. We got CES coming out next week. So typically right before CES, news is a little light. They always send us all the information, so they don't share it with anyone. So.
Yeah, so we're full of information that we're trying to not say and blow.
Yeah.
So
a couple of those.
Yeah, so we're I think we did good today. We're not going to get sued or nothing like that. But it's definitely one of those things where it's like, oh, I know this thing, and but none of it's exciting.
So my last prediction is we won't hear anything about this driving drone, Nikon or DJI driving drone at CES. And let's see, there was another thing that was we didn't talk about it, but there's a Insta360 camera that's new. I think we will hear about that at CES.
Oh, heck yeah.
Aerial 360 camera. Has there been one? A drone? I think.
Cool. The closest thing I think was Kodak.
Like adapting theirs to it. And
because their 360 camera was actually 2 180 cameras that sort of linked together. So they just split them apart and put one on the top, one on the bottom.
And GoPro, you could adapt their Karma with a Fusion.
The thing with the drones is you really need a camera on top and bottom. Otherwise, you'd look up and you'll see
this drone. Yeah. I think getting it far enough away and then just putting it in the null area where they have overlap. Probably could, but it would need a little arm.
Here's how it works. You have the landing gear, and the arm goes up, and the camera's on top, and then it gets up in the air, and then turns upside down, flies around.
Flies upside down.
Yeah,
The
because
very
you
top
want the
does that.
stitch
Whoop.
point on the top, not on the bottom like it is on, like usually.
Yeah, because you're going to look down.
More often, yeah.
Well, or they could just,
I wanna see
redesign
how
the
people
camera to
use
be
that.
put the stitch at the top.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, because it's the mount point that needs to be erased most of the time, right?
Well, yeah, but-
when you look down, there's the mount point.
Yeah.
That's why
The whole
Mike would
flipping
say,
upside down doesn't need to happen if you just flip the inside of the camera around. So then they put the
just
stitch
mount
part.
the camera
Oh,
upside
yeah.
down. I
Well,
guess.
no.
Yeah, you're right.
It has to flip upside down because it can't land.
Well, that's
It's
why
in
you
the
have.
way.
It's got to go out like a landing gear.
Yeah,
It's
like a
gotta
It
retract.
like
telescope.
grows this
Yeah.
little thing. Yeah,
Oh, no.
it's gonna be very fun.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm curious. To
Maybe
see,
it
'cause
hangs
they
from a
did that-
string.
Yeah, and just man,
I don't think that would work.
that's what the 360 Insta 360 is all about. They give you a string to
That's true.
throw
They
it
do
around.
that like bullet time, whatever.
Yeah, that's
effect.
clever.
That's the guy's ridiculous. How ridiculous on YouTube. They use one and they literally drop things from a 40-meter tower, like these big giant cement balls, and they just throw the 360 camera at the ball as it's coming down, and then just go past it, and then they show you the shot of it going past in a 16:9. It's actually pretty clever. I can imagine they destroy quite a few cameras though.
That's cool. That's interesting use of the technology.
Yeah,
They need one of these drones, I guess, so they can stop throwing their cameras.
Man, if it
They
had
have drones.
if it had high-speed video, and you did the throwing thing while something's falling. So I bet you throw one of those things, you're getting quite a bit of motion blur.
That would
But if
be,
you could
Yeah.
slow it down as you...
that could be a cool shot.
yeah.
Okay, that's maybe a good spot to call it for the day. All right, so we'll catch you all next week. Don't forget to go to videomaker.com, I guess this week, and check out all the CES news. We'll be there starting on Tuesday. For Nicole Anjaness, Chris Monlocks, and everyone here at Videomaker, I'm Mike Wilhelm, and you've been listening to the Videomaker Podcast. We'll catch you next time.